Welcome to the Black Male Impact. Today we have Mr. Steve Julal. Mr. Julal, thanks for being here on the Black Male Impact.
Thank you very much. Happy to join you and to share my knowledge with the community.
I appreciate.
How are you doing today?
Man, I'm doing pretty good, man. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to share with us your knowledge and insights as we go on this journey to empower especially Black males. But before I get into the questions, I'll just share a little about you, but I also will give you the opportunity to share with the listeners. So Mr. Julal is an accomplished business professional and have been an accountant, I would say, as he said, all his life. He's also an educator because he taught accounting to students. Steve is also the founder of Vast Professional LLC. But I'll give the floor to Mr. Julal to share more about himself and his journey to this point.
Thank you very much, Dr. Cross. The journey is different from any other person, and I'm sure that's one of the reasons why there's a difference in just about everyone.
Yeah.
I started my career in Jamaica. I was a police officer for a few years, and that's where the bug for accounting came about. Okay. After doing a few street duties, I was placed in the office where as an accounting clerk, and that led to taking additional classes and was accepted to GC Foster College in Jamaica, where I was, as a student, I also taught principle of accounting to a freshman class. That journey continues to the US, where I started college at Oral Roberts University and did a double degree, accounting and education. Got undergraduate degree, then moved on to the master's degree. Got an assignment with Deloitte, spent several years with Deloitte. And after Deloitte, I went and worked with a company who I interned with while I was in graduate school, and also taught at University of Oklahoma, OSU campus, and Langston University. I taught a course in auditing. So the passion for teaching was always there. In 2011, was a part of the board for a charter school here in Atlanta, Georgia, where I now serve as the chairman for Georgia Connections Academy. It's a charter school, K through 12, with about 6,500 students.
Wow.
Started my own practice in 2002, and been going strong since then. We provide financial reporting, taxes, audit, and management consulting, and currently with about 38 employees.
Man, that's awesome. That's awesome. And very interesting journey because very seldom you hear someone come from being a police officer to coming over into accounting or in education, because you hear that a lot, because sometimes people put individuals in a box and think that's all they can do. But you have shown, not just since you've been here in the States, but even in Jamaica, that you've shown that it's not about the box that they created. You're going to create your own lane.
That's correct. And one of the, I would say one of the disadvantages back then in Jamaica is that there were a limited number of higher education. Okay. And only, I would say, the top 3% of each high school will move on to colleges. So others who were, even though they were capable, they did not have that opportunity. So normally you probably take a different path, but eventually you end up to where or who you want to become.
Okay.
So not the traditional route, but I have no qualms in regards to the choices I made in my life.
Okay. Yeah, because I think you had mentioned even before we started the interview that you did very well in accounting in high school. So the desire was always there. But we will get to more of your experience. Hopefully, we can dive into a little bit into some of the experiences that you had prior to now. But I'll go into the first question. What is the mindset that it takes to make a positive impact?
So it's about how you live.
Okay.
And you got to live by example. What do you expect the younger generation to see? That what they see in you is basically, it should be a reflection of how you should measure yourself and the expectation from them. And this should be a part of your daily routine. You got, in order to educate the younger generation, it's not a one-time thing.
Okay.
It's a continuous thing. And you got to get them engaged, because where they are, you've been there.
Correct.
So it's for you to get to where they are and pull them out.
And I really appreciate that perspective, because it's easier for the next generation or the younger generation or the young people around us to become who they're capable by seeing the example of it. And that's what you just alluded to, being the example. That's the type of mindset we have to have, where we show up as the person that who we want to be, for one, but who we want the younger generation to aspire to be.
Correct. And the other thing you have to take into account is that they got to be open-minded about those changes.
Okay.
See, the young folks, and help them in terms of strategies, they goal set with goal setting.
Okay.
So these goals got to be short-term and long-term,
Okay.
and they got to be measurable, because you got to hold them accountable at the same time.
Okay.
Just like how they hold you accountable to be a mentor for them.
Correct.
So it's two ways.
Okay. Okay. Well, and thanks for sharing that, because if we want to help to change the narrative, we have to start with us, and then hopefully we get the young people to model what we are modeling as adults who are in front of them. And that leads me to my next question. What advice do you have for the men listening, and how they can play a role in creating positive change?
Be involved in the community. And that's going to be very, very important. I relocated to Atlanta in 2002. And since then, I've been very involved in the local organizations.
Okay.
One that I'll bring forward is the 100 Black Men of America. I became a part of that organization in 2018, and I now serve as the treasurer. Again, it goes back to the accounting background for that organization. But be involved. Be involved also in the workplace. Join organization. There are different groups within the workplace.
Okay.
And you got to be involved. Also, whether it's your fraternities, your local school board, you got to be involved. You cannot sit in this on the side and expect changes to come. You got to be involved in your community, whether it's school, whether it's work, whether it's just social activities. You got to be involved.
And thanks for sharing that, because people always be asking how they can be a part of the change. And that's the easiest route to being a part of the change, because a lot of times you find people complain. But as men, we have to realize that we can be a part of the change. We don't have to be at the executive positions, but we can start by, as you mentioned, to be a part of the community, be a part of an organization that we have a passion for, or that support what we want to see change. And there are always organizations who want individuals to participate. So I really appreciate that perspective.
That's a question we got to ask ourselves.
Okay.
If we want to see the changes in society, you got to ask yourself, what am I doing to evoke those changes?
Man,
that's a question we got to ask ourselves too. Am I making a difference within my community? Am I involved? And if the answer is no, then you got to take a stance to become more involved.
Man, that is right. And let me ask the question to all the men listening and will be listening. Are you involved in your community? And are you being a part of the change that you want to see? I really appreciate those questions. And I think the men listening too, who may be thinking about being a part of a change will appreciate that perspective or the questions. That leads me to my next question. How can we, as Black men, help to change the narrative today? And this is somewhat part of being involved in the community, but you can choose from what narrative you think we can take a stance and make some change.
It goes back to the latter question is that you got to be involved in the community. You got to be involved in the school. Go to the school as early as kindergarten and go to the school once a month and read to the kids. I'm sure the teachers would be love to see, especially more Black men in the classroom, not as a teacher, but just to go in there and give your support. Kindergarten, K1 through K6, they would love to see us more to show up more.
Okay.
Because that's where most times our young brothers, sisters really get it, the messaging. So you got to be involved, whether again from the school, your community, fraternity, or any organization within the city. There's tons of organization. There's a group called Meetup, and sometimes I go and see what different activities going on within the community. You can do the same thing. I mean, the internet is at our fingertip nowadays. So there's no excuse why we shouldn't be able to help the young brothers. That's the only way we're going to change the narratives. We can complain a day in, day out. The only way we're going to change it if we as men are involved.
And that is true. That is true. And it doesn't matter what change we want. We just have to be a part of the change we want to see. And because we're not going, as individual, we may not be able to do everything, but we should participate in the areas that we would like to see change. And you're right. I think I was reading an article where the kids were so excited when the Black male from the community, he was a well-known person still. But they were excited just to see a Black male in the classroom. And that's one thing that we hear a lot, that there are not a lot of Black male teachers. So as Black men, just being in those spaces at times will send a different message to the young people. So I really appreciate that. And it goes back to, as you said, we need to get involved. And if we're going to create change, we have to be involved. And that leads me to my next question. What or who has inspired or influenced you to pursue the path that you're on? I know you have shared different parts of your journey, where you have been an athlete, where you have been a police officer, and you have taught in the classrooms, and where you are now as an accountant. So who have influenced you to be on this path?
Honestly, growing up as a young Black man in my community in Jamaica, didn't really have a lot of choice in terms of career. And my uncle was an accountant. I have two uncles that were accountants. One lived in my community, the other lived in Kingston. And I look at them and see success in them. And I told myself, in order for me to be successful, I probably have to follow their footsteps. And I think that's where the passion for numbers came in. In high school, I did well in math. And even though folks don't understand that counting is a science, it's not really a math. But I started developing the love for math and then accounting as soon as I get to high school. So my uncle was very involved. He gave me my first internship when I was in high school. My 12th grade, I did an intern at his office, even though I didn't know what I was doing, but just to be in that environment changed the whole thing for me. I sat for the exams at our examination board in Jamaica, and I got a distinction in accounting. So I know that was my path. Even though I took a detour by becoming a police officer, I knew one day I was going to get back to my dream job, which was being an accountant. And he always encouraged me through the process. And he told me that I should not limit myself in regards to how far I can get into the space. He wasn't a chartered accountant. So I took all the weapons that he provided me with and created, think outside the box.
Okay.
I didn't know much about a CPA prior to coming to the US, but as soon as I got here, I realized that was the highest level you could reach as an accountant. So I put all the created all the steps, goals. That was my number one goal, was to become a CPA. It's a tough exam. And the first time I failed, I told myself I was not going to give up. I tried again and I passed the exam. So I would say the biggest influencer in my life was my uncle, because if it wasn't for him, I probably wouldn't be in this space.
And that's important to share. So he was like a mentor to you. And so I'll ask this
Yes.
question, and I know based on what you shared, being a part of the chartered school here, how important you think it is for mentorship.
It's extremely important. It's extremely important, especially in the Black community.
Okay.
Because when you think about it, most of these kids, the communities they're coming from, except for the athletes, the entertainers, they don't see us in our communities. Most times, we don't go back to our communities to let them realize that they can be judged, they can be engineers, they can be attorneys, they can be accountants, they can be whatever they want to be. But it just takes people like you and I to go back and touch that life.
And I think,
So the need is there.
okay, great. So, and that ties a little bit to this question. What is your perspective on the current climate of Black men in society today? Do you think we
It's a tough
are
one.
involved as much as we should? Or do you think there are barriers why we are not as involved?
So from a demographic standpoint, I would say some cities are maturing, while there are other cities throughout the US where there's a need. So for instance, I live in Atlanta. We have several different programs here. And as I make mention earlier, that I'm a part of the 100 Black Men of Atlanta, and we have several different units within the organization where we serve the public, where we are get involved in the community. There's one community that recently it home for me, because at Douglas High School, where we mentor quite a few young men, there's a 14-year-old father in one of our class.
Wow.
He's 14 years old and he's a single father,
Wow.
single parent.
Wow.
And it touched my heart. But he took up that responsibility because the mom did not want that child. He took up the responsibility and he has custody of his child. But at the same time, he sees the need for education, and we are helping him to get to the next level.
Wow.
We need more Black men to step up and do our part, because that's the only way it's going to change. And I wish other cities throughout the US, we can showcase our Black men who are successful in the boardroom, who are successful in the classroom, who are successful in other areas, to let these young minds know that they can accomplish anything they want to pursue. And also, we should not be ashamed of our past.
Correct.
Many of us that wear suit and tie today are not coming from the makeshift homes as you would expect, but we have worked hard to attain. And we should be proud of that, because we have put ourselves through college or other institution, and we reach a point now where we can reach back and influence those young lives.
Man, that is, well, the story of the young man, it shows too that there are a lot of young men out there that need guidance. But as you mentioned, we have to get involved. We have to let them see through us what is possible. As you mentioned, that there are a lot of us who started from an humble beginning, the most unfavorable situations, but we have pushed ourselves, we have challenged ourselves, we have made sacrifice to be here. And as you mentioned, we should be proud, but we should get involved in the lives of the young people if we're going to see change. Because as we mentioned earlier in the conversation, that it's easier to become what you see. So the more they see us, the more they will want to strive to be like what they see. If they see the entertainers, if they see the athletes, that's all they're going to strive to be. And I read a statistics that it's easier to become a lawyer than it's to become a professional athlete because the
That's true.
pool is so small, and there are millions of students started out on the journey wanted to be a professional athlete, but the percentage is really small when it comes to making it to the professional level. But let me ask this question, although this is nothing to do with empowering Black men, but I know that you're an athlete. Did you have the aspiration of being a professional athlete?
I was very honest with myself earlier in my athletic career that I was using it as a stepping stone to get to my dream job. I did my research. I realized that athletes wasn't getting paid as, especially in the sport that I participated, track and field, wasn't getting paid as well as much as going into the business space. So in 1996, I had a choice whether to go back home for the Olympic trials or to pursue graduate school. And when I weighed the options, I tried to be true to myself. I didn't want to fool myself, basically. And I'm sure you know that as an athlete too, that sometimes we struggle with those, to make those decisions. And I think I made the right decision was to pursue graduate school. And I think today it's paying off. So it
And
was I mean, go ahead.
no, but you're right. Sometimes we are faced with those decisions, and we have to be honest with ourselves. So I was going to agree with what you have said, especially when we have the aspiration to do something else. We may have to give up something to get something that we believe is better. And that comes with making those tough decisions at times.
Yes, sir.
Yes. So, all right. So I'm going to go into my next question. And most of these questions are somewhat tied to each other, but it's about empowering Black men. So, what change do you want to see in general amongst Black men? And I know we need to be involved, but what other change would you like to see amongst Black men?
Wow. I don't know if there's anything that's done in the way except being involved, to be honest with you. I'm not sure if there's anything else we can do more than being involved. I was looking at some statistics recently, and I'm sure you may come across this in terms of how they build prisons throughout the US and at what age they start forecasting how many prisoners going to be they will be housing, and it's alarming. So if they can think and start planning for prison cells 15 years in advance, why can't we as Black men get involved with our kids from an early age and start helping them to plan their future?
Man,
It's important.
that's a powerful perspective. That's a really
It's
powerful
important.
perspective, because that's one thing that we are aware of, that there is a prison pipeline. They talk about,
There's a pipeline.
yeah,
Correct.
yeah, talk about breaking that prison pipeline. I have educators talked about it, but being that they are so intentional about creating these facilities based on
So
the
why not compete with them and defy what they're trying to do? We got to compete with them head on.
man, that
Let
is
them build those cells, but don't have enough prisoners for it.
man, that is a great perspective, a really great perspective. And it ties perfectly with what you mentioned about getting involved. We have to be at the forefront of the change we want to see. And we cannot let where we are or where we have ascended to, based on different opportunities and progress that we have made personally, to stop us from going back to these communities. Because some of us reach the point where we are because someone lent a hand to us.
Yes. The only other thing, just to thinking about this discussion right now, The only other thing that I could think of is the mere fact that as Black men, we got to be more patient with our Black boys. If you look at as I say, I'm a numbers guy, and you can tell I relate everything to numbers. Women are getting, young Black girls are getting in the engineering program, they're getting the architectural program. You see more of them venturing to other programs, right? And they always say that from statistics that women quicker to grasp things, or it takes a longer time for men to mature.
Right.
So if it takes a longer time for young boys to catch up with girls, that means as Black men, we got to be more patient and understanding with our young Black men.
Well,
they learn different from their peers,
correct.
So we got to take those things in consideration.
And thanks for sharing that, because a lot of Black men who are listening and who tune into the Black Male Impact, they are mentors. And I know they will come across Black male students who sometimes are not on the same level, but that doesn't mean those students will not achieve later. And sometimes it's just the encouragement they need. So the patience, as you mentioned, really plays a role. So we don't write off a student just because he's not doing so well, especially in the initial stages. And some of us too, if we were discouraged, we wouldn't be here, because not all of us did well when we were much younger, and people still give us a chance.
My hand is up for that one, because I'm a late bloomer.
That's right. That's right.
I'm a late bloomer for sure.
That's right. So we have to understand, as you mentioned. So I really glad you mentioned that, because I don't think that's something that we talk about a lot when it comes to being mentors to Black males, younger Black males, is to be patient and understanding, because we're not even going against only the fact that they may not learn as the same rate, but we are competing with the many distractions to make sure we get them on path so they can realize their potential. So my next question is, what was a pivotal moment in your life?
The pivotal moment in my life is when I came to the US, and I was an athlete, came here on a track scholarship, and I declared my major to the track coach at the institution. I said I want to do accounting, declare accounting as my major. And the coach looked at me and said, that's a tough degree. Our athletes normally do, and he lists the programs. And I said, no, I want to be an accountant.
That's right.
And he said, we'll reevaluate this at the end of the first year. If your grades are not up, then you have to consider changing your major, because that's the only way you're going to be eligible to compete at the NCAA level. I said, nope, that's what I want to do. And I put in the work my first semester, and I ended up with a 3.4 GPA. At that point, I told myself I won't be looking back.
That's right.
This is what I want to do. And that was the pivotal moment of my life. Since then, nothing is impossible.
And
the stars are the limit.
That's right. But just listening to what you have shared, if you weren't strong in your conviction, right, that's what you want, you would have choose something else, because the coach believe as an athlete, as a Black male, you're not able to do the accounting. And a lot of times as Black men, we come across people who want to downplay our ability. And if we are not strong in our conviction, we change our minds to do what they want us to do, or what they believe we're capable of doing. So even though that was just a pivotal moment for you, that is like a story of a lot of Black males who sometimes are told, oh no, you can't do that. No, that is going to be too difficult for you. And I think that is something that we have to encourage our Black males, despite what society said to you about what you want to pursue. If they think it's hard, don't make their belief becomes your belief. You have to stand firm in your conviction so you can achieve what you believe you want and capable of achieving. And that is really, I really appreciate you sharing that as well, because it happens a lot. Happens
Too
a lot,
often.
you
Too
know.
often.
Huh? Yeah,
Too often.
yes, too often. It happens too many times to
Yeah,
our
we
black
gotta
men.
defy that myth. We gotta defy that myth.
That's right. And but you know what, too? That's why it's important, as you mentioned, that we need to show up. We need to talk to our young men to let them know that some of the same limitations that they are placing on you, they have placed on us. So you don't have to fall prey to their belief because we didn't listen. You don't have to listen and limit yourself based on someone's opinion of you and what they believe you are capable of doing. And that leads me to this question. What life lesson have you learned late in life that you believe is important and can benefit this generation?
I would say put pen to paper and establish short and long-term goals.
Yeah.
And when you're writing those goals down, make sure that they are measurable. If I want to be a CPA, I'm just giving you an example. It's going to take me accomplishing a degree in accounting. And currently, I have to have 150 hours at the undergraduate or graduate level. So, one on my list, I would say I want to be an accountant. How am I going to get there? Be a part of a 4-year program. Take a Becker course that's going to prepare me for the exam. And there's 4 parts of the exam. I need to pass at least 1 part per quarter. So that's my goal. That's my long-term goal. When I get the degree and the hours out the way, then my goal now is to pass 4 parts within this year. So between January and March, I should pass the first part of the exam. April to June, the second part. But set realistic goals. Whatever you want to achieve in life, if you want to run 11 flat over the 100-meter, you got to have goals.
Right, correct.
So it doesn't matter what you're working on. If you want to be an artist, you should have a compilation. If you want to be a producer or a writer, you got to start writing lyrics. Whatever it is, you got to set goals. Because when you don't set goals, you're aimless. You don't have a target. So you got to be more specific about the goal setting. And that's going to be important in your journey of whatever you want to do in life.
Correct. And I think a lot of males out here who are being role models and are doing things in their community know that setting goals is not something that we were all taught when we were much younger, and the importance of it. And maybe we were, but maybe we weren't paying attention. But it is something I believe it is important, as you mentioned, to put pen to paper, write down whatever you want to achieve, both short-term and long-term goal. But
I have a very simple analogy that I will normally share when I'm speaking to business owners. If you have a choice between 2 planes from Atlanta to LA, the first plane has a pilot with a flight map. The second plane have a pilot without a flight path. And both planes heading to LA. Which of the plane would you want to be in?
and with the guy with the flight map.
Thank you. And because he has a map. That's his way of getting to LA. So it's simple. In your life, you got to have a flight map. Where do you want to get to? Put it on paper because it's more achievable that way.
And thanks for sharing that. And I know the listeners will appreciate that reminder as well. So my next question before I get to my final question,
Okay.
where can the listeners find and help support the work that you're doing to make a difference?
Okay, so from the business standpoint, VAS Professionals, it's www.vaasprofessionals.com. From a mentoring perspective, I'm part of the 100 Black Men of Atlanta, and it's whichever city you're in, you can just Google 100 Black Men for your community. The charter school, I'm on the board. They're always looking for board members. Non-for-profit, always looking for board members. Again, it's right at our fingertip. We can always go into Google and look up board chairs or board of directors in my area, and I'm sure tons of things will come up.
And
If you're part of fraternity, sorority, get signed up. Be a community activist, get signed up. There's plenty of opportunities nowadays for us all.
okay, great. And thanks for that reminder. And I know that maybe the listeners can find you on social media. I will put different ways to connect with you from your website for business, and also maybe LinkedIn for professional connection, so they can learn more, especially those who are starting their journey of accounting, especially for the younger generation, because I know you also have provided internships to young people who are on their journey to pursue their degree or start their professional journey in accounting. So I would make sure I put ways in the description to connect with you, so they can reach out to you if they want to learn more. So my final question is, what impact do you want to have on the world?
When I leave here, I want to make sure the world is a better place. And that's something I do continuously. As you mentioned earlier, that every semester, there's at least one or two interns that works in my company. And we are pulling these interns from the AUC, whether it's Morehouse, Spelman, Clark Atlanta, and Morris Brown colleges, and also Georgia State. So we always have interns every semester that I want to say since 2008, we have had one or two interns per semester. But I want to make sure that I am teaching those behind me entrepreneurship skills. That's important to me, because college have taught us that we need to work for someone. I am trying to defy that notion and saying that even if you want to work for someone, you still can create something of your own.
Right.
I'm a big proponent of having your own. Not everyone can do it, but if you have a desire to do it, I want to make sure that I can touch and change your life. I want to give back, because at the end of the day, we take nothing with us.
Correct.
So whatever I can do to give back to the generation behind me, or even the generation ahead of me, I'm more than willing to do the same.
Man, thanks for being that type of person in our community, because we always want people to give back. We love to know that we come across people who are committed to making a difference, to give back to the community, to leave it better, and to provide opportunities for others. So, Mr. Julal, man, it is a pleasure having you here on the Black Male Impact, and just to hear the insights and which you keep saying to us as men, as Black men, that we need to be involved. That's the crux of the progress that we need to make, being involved, and we need to be involved in any way or space that we are capable of being involved in, so we can make those changes.
I must say thank you for the work that you're doing in our community.
Man, I appreciate that, man.
Thank you.
I appreciate that. So, and listeners, as always, our goal is to bring to you guests that we believe would provide insights and perspective that can help us to move forward on our journey. As you know, the Black Male Impact is where positive changes are inspired. And we bring guests that we believe will inspire you or inspire us to go forward, to make a difference, to make a positive impact in our communities. Thanks again for being here on the Black Male Impact.
Thank you.